Dragi đaci i profesori, očekuje nas jedan vrlo interesantan događaj. Želim posebno da pozdravim đake iz drugih škola i kolege iz škola koje takođe imaju neke slabove. Dakle, ove naučne učionice koje se otvaraju i dalje tako iz meseca u mesec. I ja ću se u svoje ime, u ime đaka naših i u ime svih mekih slabova u Srbiji zahvaliti grupi za obrazovanje, koja je tako kontinuirano već jedan ozbiljan period postiže dobre rezultate i stvarno otvara i oprema sve ove naučne učionice. Dakle, Centar za promociju nauke naš, Nordeus, Dostignuća mladih, Inicijativa Digitalna Srbija, jednom rečju grupa za obrazovanje, radi veoma ozbiljan i važan posao za sve nas. Ovaj događaj je u okviru tih aktivnosti koje sprovodimo u mekim slabovima našim jedan naučni skup, je tako mogu reći da smo svi mi koji učestvujemo i koji se bavimo obrazovanjem i koji ulažemo energiju u ove meke slabove u neku ruku doprinosimo razvoju nauke. Ja ću posebno pozdraviti svoje profesore, Čedu Škorića i majstru Natašu. Oni su ti, jedni od onih koji nose i drže naše škole, naše gimnazije i omogućavaju da đaci praktično rade ono o čemu smo možda sanjali do pre nekoliko meseci. Hvala vam što ste danas sa nama. Izvolite.
Čisto da bismo se malo bolje čuli, da se ne nadvikujemo. Hvala vam svima što ste došli i dobrodošli na promociju knjige Kako vaš mozak radi. Ovo je, dakle, prvo srpsko izdanje ove knjige koje je dopunjeno u odnosu na američko izdanje. I ovaj deo ćemo pričati upravo o ovoj knjizi i o programu na osnovu koje je knjiga nastala. Najpre da se predstavimo, ja sam Katarina Stekić, inače sam istraživač saradnik pri Filozofskom fakultetu, laboratoriju za neurokogniciju i primenjenu kogniciju i saradnica Centra za promociju nauke, a sagovornici danas su upravo autor knjige Greg Gjeјđ, neuronaučnik i popularizator nauke, Milica Manojlović, doktorantkinja na Filozofskom fakultetu na Odeljenju za psihologiju, koja je bila deo programa letnje neuronaučne škole koje smo sproveli prošle godine tokom leta i koja je zapravo deo čitavog projekta na osnovu kog je ova knjiga nastala. Milor Đuričanin ispred Nordeus fondacije, kao jedan od predstavnika projekta Mekih slaba. Najpre da se zahvalimo Gregu što je došao ovde danas, on će vam pričati na engleskom svoj deo, ali najpre da vam ispričamo ideju kako je ovo sve zapravo nastalo, s obzirom da mi imamo sa Gregom saradnju već više godina. Uz podršku američke ambasade uspeli smo da realizujemo ovaj jedan projekat srpsko-američke saradnje sa ciljem promocije neuronauka. I zapravo prvi korak jeste bila ova letnja neuronaučna škola gde su američki i srpski studenti zajednički radili mesec dana u Makerspace-u Centra za promociju nauke. Milica će vam pričati više o njenom iskustvu kako je taj program izgledao. I tokom ovog programa su razvijali eksperimente koji su zapravo ušli u ovo dopunjeno srpsko izdanje knjige. A više o tome šta će dalje koraci biti i kako će da se sprovode obuke nastavnika, koje će biti najpre sutradan jedna obuka za nastavnike iz Meker slabova širom Srbije, a potom toga idemo u turneju po Srbiji i po ostalim Meker slabovima gde ćemo održavati dodatne obuke za nastavnike i takođe će se oprema i ove knjige distribuirati po Meker slabovima. O tome će vam više pričati i Greg i Miloš, ali najpre evo Grega da pitamo otkud motivacija za ovakav program i šta je ideja iza čitave ove priče. So Greg, what is the motivation behind this type of program? What is the idea and what is the purpose of it all?
Okay, so the motivation is heavily based in the fact that we have progressed pretty far in medicine from 150 to 200 years ago, the average lifespan was 35 years, right? And we fast forward today, and we more than doubled that. But when you look at neurological disorders specifically, we haven't really progressed much at all, right? So there's no cures for any other neurological disorder. The treatments are not very good in most of them. And so what is needed is neuroscience research. This is kind of what we do. And the only way, when I started my PhD, to get access to tools to understand the brain was to dedicate your life to become a neuroscientist. And that seems silly, right? You shouldn't have to dedicate your life just to try something, You should be able to become interested in astronomy by looking through a telescope, not by getting a PhD for 8 years, or something like that. That's dumb. That was the motivation behind it. And so when we figured out a way to kind of democratize the tools, and then when we did that, since it hasn't been taught in maker labs or in schools before, we had to develop the curriculum. So that's the motivation behind the book tonight that we're launching.
Thank you so much, Greg. U suštini ono što nismo pomenuli jeste da je u toku nedelja svesti o mozgu, čime je još jedan razlog zašto smo danas zašto pričamo o ovome. Neurološki problemi, kao što je Greg pomenuo, jesu dosta neistraženi, samo polje neuropsihologije, neurokognicije, neurobiologije ima još mnogo neodgovorenih pitanja i još mnogo prostora za istraživanje. I upravo Makers labovi su prostori učionice budućnosti gde ovakav multidisciplinarni pristup može da se ostvari. Miloše, možeš da nam kažeš nešto o tome kako Makers labovi funkcionišu i na koji način će se upravo Gregov program, koji je baziran na knjizi, da se sprovede?
Da bih ostao na temi, prvo hvala svima što ste došli, hvala našim nastavnicima iz škola sa Makers labovima. Mislim da će ovo biti jedan početak projekta. Mi smo sada kao Nordeus fondacija i kao grupa za obrazovanje, odnosno sve organizacije koje ste čuli da su deo te grupe, pokrenuli kao prvu inicijativu koja nas je sve negde udružila, u stvari tu inicijativu izgradnje Makers labova u školama. Ideja iza toga jeste da se pomogne prevashodno nastavnicima sa prostorima koji su unapređeni za jedan savremeni rad, eksperimentalni rad, projektni rad, i da se ti prostori opreme različitim alatima koji su u stvari potrebni da bi negde i doživljaj ove nauke u stvari bio možda malo drugačiji u odnosu na samo to da čitamo teorijski znanje i slično. To je nekad bila jedna od inicijativa, to je samo jedna i možda najvidljivija danas jer je fizički prisutna u školi, ali ono na čemu radimo i što će od sada, u stvari već postaje vidljivo, su različiti programi koji će mreži Makers labova, odnosno mreže škola koji imaju Makers labove biti dostupna i ti projekti su sada već, čini mi se, poznati i vama ovde, bar se nadamo, u školi. Znači imali smo jedan sad projekat gde pravimo TikTok neke redakcije koje će pričati o nauci, obrazovanju kroz jedan i dobiti neko obrazovanje koje im pomaže u tome. Počeo je program kako radi vaš mozak, gde se bavimo neuronaukom, povezujemo to sa robotikom. Počinje program Galaksije Kupa koji će povezivati električne škole u takmičenju, u kreiranju nekih rešenja baziranih na hardverima, ali to vidimo sutra kao jedan centar za sva druge neke projekte koje ćemo raditi zajedno sa vama. Počinje projekat koji će se baviti budućnošću poljoprivrede, odnosno budućnošću organske neke poljoprivrede, znači načina da mi koristimo neke digitalne alati, da razumemo kako to doprinosi, kako možemo u stvari veriti salinitet, recimo zemljišta, kvalitet vazduha, kreirati neke sisteme koji su bitni i tako dalje. Znači, ovo je sad sve jedan veliki početak za sve nas. Prve godine smo to izgradili do sada 15 Makers labova, do kraja ove godine biće 27, prisutnih u 21 gradu i opštini u celoj Srbiji. I to je negde jedan onako mehanizam koji radi, koji će raditi i danas da o tome previše trošim vremena. Meni je drago samo da imate doživljaj ovog programa i da verujete da će takvi programi doći. Posebno mladim ljudima bih želeo da se obratim. Grupa za obrazovanje je napravljena i zbog podrške vama i zaista ta vrednost nekako mi se čini da će tek da se oseti u nekih narednih godina 2 dana. Što se tiče ovoga, evo tu je zanimljivo jednu priču samo da podelim. Sve u stvari počelo prvo time što smo se u stvari mi upoznali na jednoj naučnoj konferenciji baš ovde u Beogradu. I ono što će vama Greg kasnije pokazati, u stvari pokazao meni i posle jednog razgovora od sat vremena, ja sam totalno bio kupljen celom idejom i onda u stvari shvatimo kasnije, nešto što volim da kažem je da mozak je možda ovde glavni junak cele priče, ali da je srce ipak odigralo najbitniju ulogu, jer je Greg naš srpski zet i čovek koji iz ljubavi prema svojoj ženi, prema državi Srbiji, prema našoj zajednici, kulturi, u stvari kada je prodavao svoje prava na novu knjigu koju je izdao poznati MIT Press u Americi, čekirao tamo svesno da neće uključiti u taj dogovor sa njima srpski jezik i srpsku našu državu. I ta prava je besplatno dao Centar za promociju nauke, a mi smo onda, kad smo čuli to, u stvari rešili da jednostavno finansiramo ceo projekat, da se štampa knjiga. I onda smo u dogovoru sa američkom ambasadom u stvari uspeli da obezbedimo sve ono što će tokom ovog programa biti besplatno svim školama koji su u našoj mreži. Znači, svaka škola će dobiti i opremu, i knjigu, i obuke za nastavnik, i podršku mentora, i trenera, i Centar za promociju nauke, a ono što ćemo mi kao Nordus fondacija u nekom narednom periodu garantovati jeste da u narednih 5 godina svaka škola koja bude postala deo neke slab mreže će imati pristup istom ovom programu, istim ovim alatima i samo što sada vi imate. Tako da, eto, za mene je to zaista ogromno zadovoljstvo, godinu i po dana nam je trebalo da dođemo do ovog trenutka, tako da verujete da tek velike stvari će početi da se dešavaju. Hvala vam puno.
Hvala puno, Miloše, i ja verujem da će velike stvari da se dešavaju, tek ovo je samo početak. Kako je to do sada izgledalo, čućemo iz perspektive studentkinje koja je učestvovala u letnjoj školi, kako je izgledao razvoj eksperimenata, kako je izgledala saradnja sa studentima iz Amerike, šta smo mi naučili od njih, šta su oni naučili od nas. O tome će nam malo više reći Milica.
Zdravo svima i od mene. Da u suštini prošle godine na leto sam ja zajedno sa kolegama i koleginicama sa Beogradskog univerziteta učestvovala u jednoj mesečnoj letnjoj školi koja je bila prilično intenzivno, ali stvarno divno iskustvo u kojem smo zapravo obogatili ovo srpsko izdanje Gregove knjige. Ona u suštini nije bukvalni prevod, već je dopunjena cijelim jednim setom eksperimenata koje smo mi razvili tokom tih mesec dana. Ono što je bilo sjajno iskustvo jeste što je to bio potpuno multidisciplinarni tim. Dakle, ja sam psihološkinja, pored toga smo imali koleginice i kolege sa biološkog fakulteta, medicinskog fakulteta, ETF-a i studenti iz Amerike koji su svi studirali neuronauke. I u tom smislu, ono što je nekako bio ključni benefit, ajde da krenemo od toga za nas kao studente, jeste što nam je ovo pružilo priliku da se nekako umrežimo. Svi se bavimo neuronaukama, ali potpuno iz drugačijih perspektiva i ovo je bilo jedno mesto, dakle taj Makers Lab u kom smo boravili, gde smo mogli nekako svi zajedno da sarađujemo, razmenimo ideje i prosto steknemo sliku kako je to izučavati istu stvar, ali samo iz jedne malo drugačije pozicije, što opet otvorilo i neke prostore za saradnju, inspirisalo nas lično. Ono što je bilo super i što smo pored toga sarađivali, kao što je Katarina već rekla, sa studentima iz Amerike, oni studiraju neuronauke, što je nešto što mi nemamo. Dakle, u Srbiji do nivoa doktorskih studija ne postoji opcija da vam na diplomi piše bilo šta što ima u sebi reč neuronauka. Oni imaju tu mogućnost od osnovnih studija, tako da je ta razmena bila prilično dinamična i zanimljiva u tom smislu da smo stekli uvid u to šta znači studirati neuronauke od početka i kako izgleda taj kurikulum i koliko se razlikuje od svakog od naših pojedinačnih kurikuluma i načina na koji pristupamo ovim temama. Tako da to je bila jedna stvar, a sa druge strane stvarno je bilo sjajno iskustvo što smo imali priliku da doprinesemo i oblikujemo način na koji će, hajde da kažemo, neke naše potencijalne koleginice i kolege, odnosno svi srednjoškolci i srednjoškolke koji su sada tu i koji će biti deo Makers Labova i u budućnosti, kako će njihov pristup neuronaukama izgledati i nadamo se stvarno da smo to učinili makar kroz ove eksperimente jednim zanimljivim i inspirišućim iskustvom.
Hvala puno, Milice. Moje isto iskustvo kao mentorke tokom trajanja ovog programa da itekako nam fali možda tog praktičnog iskustva, s obzirom da se kod nas neuronauke izučavaju zapravo tek na nivou fakulteta, ali ne kao kurikulum za sebe, već iz različitih aspekata psihologije, biologije, elektrotehnike. I upravo ovaj pristup u srednjim školama, zbog čega mi je jako drago da vidimo puno srednjoškolaca ovde sada sa nama, će da vam pruži neki način, drugačiji uvid na to, da kažem, iskustvo sa vašim rukama, taj hands-on pristup, koji do sada nismo imali priliku toliko da u Srbiji vidimo. I upravo ova knjiga jeste nešto, neću kažem revolucionarno, ali jeste nešto drugačija u odnosu na ostale literaturu iz neuronauka koju možete da pronađete, jer je upravo fokusirana na to da se razume zašto se neke stvari rade i koji je opipljiv rezultat tih stvari, a da ta oprema zaista ne mora da bude super skupa ili super fancy, kao što se to često predstavlja. I kod nas je jako teško doći do takve vrste opreme i na samim fakultetima i institutima. Ono što pristup koji ovde dobijamo i ono što Gregova firma Backyard Brain zapravo radi je omogućava da ovi alati budu dostupni širom sveta i upravo ta demokratizacija nauke omogućava dalju popularizaciju i širenje ovih važnih izučavanja gde ideja je da zapravo tu da začinimo to interesovanje na nivou srednje škole već. A sada će vam Greg pokazati kako sve to zapravo u praksi radi, šta možemo sa ovom vrstom opreme da radimo i do kakvih zaključaka možemo da dođemo. So, Greg, now it's time for you to present what is in the book and what you can do with it.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to be talking about this. Does everyone know what this is? Brain. Good. I just want to get an idea. So, who in here is an educator? Who's a teacher or an educator? By show of hands. All right, a lot of them. How many here are students? Wow, that's cool. How many here are at this school? Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I did hear Srpski Zed, so I am Srpski Zed. And a little known fact that I was unaware of is that my wife went to school here in 1990, up until 1995. And I did talk to her friend who gave me a ride from the airport. And I said, hey, she told me, like, hey, you know Sonny went to school there. I'm like, no, I did not know that. And so she's like, so she sent me this picture. And this is my wife right here. She was, 16 years old. She said, you can show that, but just don't show any close-up. So here's a close-up of her right here. It's funny because she has blonde hair. This is like the 90s, I don't know, kind of grunge look, I think. Yeah, it looks like I can almost hear Nirvana. Okay, but I'm here to talk about the book. This is what I'm going to do is I broke it down into two parts. The first part, I'm going to talk about the translation. So when we had this idea, we got this book with MIT Press, and they said, hey, are there any countries you want to not publish in? Like, why would we not want to publish in a country? He's like, well, maybe you want to do it. And I was like, oh yeah, no, Serbia. I don't want you to publish in Serbia. I want to publish. He's like, I don't think you're going to do it, right? So that was the idea. So we withheld that. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to talk about the stuff that we built up to this point. And then we did something cool. We actually added a whole bunch of stuff on with all these students that are here. New chapters. I'm going to go into that separately. But I'm just going to talk about a little bit about what... Is anyone going to the workshop tomorrow? Any of the teachers? Okay, I got a handful. All right. So this is what you're going to be doing tomorrow. So again, we're going to be talking about the brain. All right. And we're going to be talking about Heyaponia? Oh, okay, this is, okay. I don't know who did the artwork, but if you guys, I mean, look at this font, and then look at the font, who did that? It's absolute genius. All right, so I want to shake the person's hand who does the font. All right. We are going to be talking about neurons, and neurons are they're like every other cell in the body. You know, you've got some DNA. What's this? Mitochondria? What's this one? No, I don't know. No. But the point is that it's a regular cell, right? Except they have these special things called processes. These are things that stretch away from the cell. And in particular, neurons have a very special process called axon, yes. And so what we're going to be doing today is or actually tomorrow, we're not going to do this today, I'm not going to do this one live. We're going to be recording from actual real neurons in the classroom. And that's what everyone's going to get a kit that does this. But we're not going to use a real person to do that, because in order to do that, I could drill into Militz's head and put some wires in there, but she probably wouldn't like that. And so we use a stand-in. This is called an animal model. And we're going to use Bubashwaba. And why do we use Bubashwaba? Is because if you look at our brain, right, we have like, in about 500 million years ago, you have a ball with a stick on it, right? So it's like this idea of a nervous system that had a centralized thing where you have a brain and a brain stem. If you look in the cockroach here, it's got a very similar thing. It's got a very small brain and a brain stem, right? But the idea is that there's nothing really different about them except for the number of neurons. And so if you were to slice a brain and stain it and look at it, I mean, if you're an expert, you could tell that the human neurons are slightly bigger than the cockroach ones, but in general, they act the same, they look the same, and so this is like an animal model, so we can record from cockroaches and really manipulate the neurons and understand how our neurons work, because they're almost identical. So we have 80 billion neurons, and this guy has 1 million, so you just have more of them, right? And so what we're going to do tomorrow is we're going to take a cockroach and we're going to put him in ice water and then anesthetize. So we want to be very ethical how we treat our animals, right? And so we're going to do a surgery on them where we're going to break off one of the legs. And you might be thinking that's kind of mean, but in nature, if you go out the street and you look out there, 20% of insects will be missing legs and missing antennas, and so they can just regrow them. So it's kind of a green process. And the reason why we're doing that is we want to have be able to record from the neurons inside the legs. So we're going to put some pins inside the neurons, and we're going to plug it into our invention here. And what this invention does is it makes small amounts of electricity bigger so that you can hear it and you can see it. And so that's what we're going to be doing tomorrow. And if you plug it in, you can plug it into your phone or your computer or your whatever you have, iPad, and then you're going to be able to record this, which I hope says spike. What's the word here? Spike. What is it in Serbian? Shijak. All right. Yeah, that should be I want to learn spike in every language. All right, so shijak. And so these shijaks are coming all over the place. We're not going to be able to understand it at first, right? And this is where our philosophy is about this idea of discovery. And so what we do is we introduce the students to this, they put some pins in, but we don't tell them anything about that, right? They're going to try to figure out what is it that they're recording from. And so eventually some students will figure out that if you kind of like blow on the leg a little bit, then you can see some responses. So you can see here that when you blow on it, something's happening, right? So there's a difference between this spot and this spot. And so they start to get the idea of what's going on. And then through some careful experimentation, they can, kind of touch a leg lightly, or this is the little hairs on the leg. You touch a little bit more, you touch a little bit more, and what's happening is that there's a neuron inside these hairs, and when you stretch it open a little bit, it lets some ions in, and that causes spikes. And what you're seeing is what's called, the spikes don't get bigger, they just get faster. And so this is the way in which our brain encodes information. And so students can discover this on their own in their first lab setting. And this is the hello world. This is your access to the brain, because once you can record spikes, then you can start doing a whole bunch of experiments. And so the book goes into visual neurons, you have motor neurons, you've got all these different types of neurons, like smells and touches and all that type of stuff. And you can really start to figure out how the brain encodes information. Can everyone understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Is it too fast, too slow, or too boring? All right, so next thing we're going to do, not going to do, we'll do it tomorrow, is look at the brain. And so we have these really fancy little things here. They're little sweatbands, Vladi Divac, right? And what we do with that is we connect directly to the brain right here, and you're going to be able to record from your entire EEGs. There it is. So when you put this on your headband and you record it, you can start to see, I think on the order of tens of thousands of neurons start to fire action potential. So kids will hook them up to their sweatband, and you're going to be able to see, for example, when your eyes are open, you have a pretty flat line, and when your eyes close, your visual cortex is going into a loop waiting for more light to come in. And when all the neurons are doing the same thing at the same time in the same area, you can actually pick it up way up here above your hair. It's kind of weird to think about, but these are neurons inside the skull. So you have your skull, your meninges, your skin, you've got your hair, and then you've got some gel, and then you can still record that signal. And to me, that's still pretty amazing. And then we can do things like this. You can have the person take a nap, right? And you can record the EEG under different stages. And one of the experiments we have in the book is to have a person take a nap. Well, first of all, while they're awake, you have them play a memory game. And then when they go to sleep, in this stage right here, in the deep sleep, if you play back some cues from the memory game they did before, and when they wake up, you only play back half of the cues, and the half you don't. And then you ask them, which ones do they remember better? And it turns out they remember better the cues that you play while you're asleep. And so it turns out that you can increase your memories while you're sleeping. It's kind of weird. That's called targeted memory reactivation. All right, so next, I'm going to do some demos now. This is system neuroscience. So yeah, it's system neuroscience. Okay. I wrote the thing, but I was like, wow. So this is system. So now we're going to look at how the different parts of the brain work together, right? And so we're going to look at systems that will go. And so the first one I want to show you is looking at the motor system. And so, Melissa, I'm going to use you. You can come on up. And then I'm going to stick some electrodes on Melissa. And so, yeah, you're already. Okay. So, like right here in her motor cortex, so on this side, she's got a neuron, and that neuron crosses over. Does anyone know why the brain crosses over? Nobody does. Yeah, it's like a weird glitch of evolution. There's some really bad theories of why, but it just probably just happened. All right, but the brain, it crosses over, it synapses onto her spinal cord, and there's a neuron in her spinal cord that's going to send a message here. So we're going to record from that neuron in the spinal cord through this thing. And so how does that work? Is there's a little bit of salt water on the back of these stickers. And the salt water allows the ions that are in the neurons to kind of flow up to this little metal tip. And then the metal turns it into electrons, and that's going to go into this metal cable here. And we should be able to, if we're lucky, record the output of her neuron in her spinal cord as her motor cortex commands that neuron by sending spikes to fire. Okay, I'm going to hook you into here. And now if I can find my, thank you, Stephanie. Okay. So I'm going to plug you in here. So what we're going to do, first of all, in electrophysiology, you spend a lot of time listening. You almost see famous neuroscientists of electrophysiology, they have like headphones around their neck because they're always listening, because the frequency of spikes is in the auditory range. And so your ear is much better at picking up than your eyes. So we're going to do that too. I'm going to turn this on. And when you're ready, give your hand a squeeze. Yeah, so this is not blood flow. You gotta do it again. This is the crackling of electricity. It almost sounds like raindrops falling, right? But we know we are careful scientists. Whoopsie. And so we're gonna plug it into our computer here. Yeah, step over here so I can. Okay. There we go. All right, go ahead and get him to squeeze again. Okay, perfect. And I'm going to switch it. I'm going to do some, actually, while we do, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go off script. All right, give me your hand over here. Because I have the settings wrong, we're going to take advantage of it. All right, so just relax for a second and just calm down. All right. You calm?
I am.
Calm. All right. Are you calm? Okay. Let me see if I can go over here now. And I'm going to set this down a little bit more. And I'm going to turn off the speakers. Listen to it. All right, does everyone recognize what this is? Just relax. So this is her EKG, her electrocardiogram. And so even though I'm recording from her wrists, her heart is here. And if you go on both sides of the heart, there's an electrical frequency that comes around. Let me lower this one more time so it looks more like a hospital. You guys want to see what hospitals see, right? There we go. Oh yeah. And so then we can even set a little threshold here. Bring it up here. It's a good heartbeat. Yeah, you've got a runner's heartbeat. And so what we can do, we can kind of, uh-oh, I lost you. Yes. And I can even turn this on. Oh yeah. We lost him, Jim. Yeah. So what we can do with this one, we can now look at the nervous system and see how does the body respond to stress. So if I were to stick her hand into ice water, her parasympathetic nervous system turns on and it starts to do the fight and flight response. And even though her hand is just sitting in ice water, her heart is going to start racing faster and faster and faster because her brain is getting a stress response. All right. So that was completely off script. And now I'm going to go back and stick you back over there. So with the heartbeat, you can measure a whole bunch of interesting things about the heart. You can measure when the hearts are open and closed. Is anyone doing like human physiology in the schools? There we go. So that'd be a good lab you could do with that. So all I'm doing here, this magic I'm doing up here, is just changing the frequencies at which we're allowing through. So it's just kind of like, so if I go back up here, now squeeze your hand again. So now we're looking at spikes again. So get it, squeeze really hard. Oh yeah. Let me do one more thing here. I opened up the wrong spike recorder. It's okay. Here's the normal one. Give it a squeeze again. Okay. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to put a little threshold here, and we're going to look at one spike. So do it again. Let me turn this thing off. Hold on. Go away. All right. Do it again, and I'm gonna. Oops. Turn this off. Okay. Well, I'm just gonna. All right. Look at that beautiful EMG. All right. So this is her. This is how her brain is. That spinal cord there is communicating. But we can zoom in, right? And we can see what each of these individual things are. And those are the spikes. That's the. What was it? I forgot it. Geic. Geic. Oh my God! Yeah, these yes. So my wife has to yell in the name, and I'm so bad at it. So these are the Geics, and the Geics are the way that your brain actually sends information from one neuron to the other, and we can actually see it in the human physiology. All right, so I'm going to unplug you for now, and I'm going to have you come back up in a minute, okay? But I just want to talk before we do that. I want to talk about a few more things about the new book. And then, all right, so, oh, piss off. How do I get rid of this? Okay. And go away. Bye-bye. All right, here we go. So that brings us to this. This is the Serbian edition. And this was not done by me. This was done by our team, many of which are here today. And so what we're going to be just discussing are the cool things that we added. So like I was saying this morning when we were giving the talk to the press, it's like, have you ever done something and then when you're finished with it, you're like, oh man, I could have done it so much better? I had that feeling. This book is called How Your Brain Works, right? But what we were kind of showing was how EEG works, how can you record from neurons, but it never came to what it is to feel alive, right? How it is to have this what we call consciousness, and that's really what I think when people are interested in neuroscience, they want to know how this thing works, right? Like how do we sense the world? So I never felt that this title covered that, but these guys came to the rescue right here. So like so what we're going to do is I'm going to talk just really briefly about some of the experiments that we added, and then I'm going to do one more demo that's going to blow your mind. Hopefully it blows your mind. Blew my mind. So. So this is our neuron again, and what the first thing I didn't like in the book was that we just kind of said, all right, here's a neuron. It's then we made it's like the brain is made up a bunch of neurons, but we didn't really give homage to the importance of the neuron. Right, the neuron is a cell, and what's weird about the cell is that the cells can make their own decisions and they can act very intelligently by themselves, right? And so we did an experiment with slime molds, and the weird thing about slime molds is that they're a single cell, right? And they can move just by kind of like growing in a certain direction, right? And so that's how they move around. And so we had these experiments done where we would put food in there, and the students who are right here were taking pictures every day and seeing what they did. How long were they in there for?
24 hours.
24 hours. Okay, so they would look in 24 hours to see where would this little slime mold grow, right? And so what they found was that if you put food out there, the slime mold will grow towards the food. All right, so it's obviously detecting where the food is. And so you might think, okay, well, not a big deal, but you're like, well, how does it know? How does it know food's there? And you think about it, well, like if it was me, I would be using my eyes or my nose, and I would then walk and use my motor cortex to send a command. But this is not. There's no motor cortex. There's nothing, right? It's just a cell, one cell, with currents coming in there, and it's doing these really advanced behaviors. And then you can do something interesting. You give it a challenge, and you say, all right, well, I'm going to put light there. And you ask the question, how often does it grow towards the, even though it used to eat food, but now because light is bad, it can dry up and die off. And so it's like, all right, well now I'm going to go in a different direction to look for food, right? So here are interesting decisions being made, not by a brain, but by a single cell, right? And so you imagine how intelligent our cells are, that we have 80 billion of these very smart cells working together to build up our brain. And so these are the data that we've collected. This comes out of the book. I love how this is represented. So this is the food and the food plus light. How often did they go to that side? And so you can see these guys are figuring this thing out not to do that. All right, and then Peter here worked on another project which we added to the book, and that is recording from the visual areas, and he invented something. Where did I put it, Peter?
In the box.
It's in the box. So this is the prototype of what she invented this summer. We'll further refine prototype. I think yours is on a breadboard, right?
No.
Oh, you did it on a proper one.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I wish I had that one. Where is it? Okay.
I gave it to Dave, I think.
Okay, it should go in a museum somewhere. All right, so this is the idea. So we're showing pictures of faces, pictures. What is it? I can't. What does the other one say?
Faces, landscapes.
Scenery and landscapes and houses or something like that, or okay. Unusual, yeah, that's what we were trying to find the P300. Okay. So the data that was collected shows something interesting. And so what Peter's invention was, Peter's an electrical engineer, and so he made something that goes onto the corner of the screen so we can see the exact moment that the light comes on, and then we can synchronize the EEG we're recording from when the screen first flashes. And so here's the time at which the screen flashes. We're recording from two different areas. And in this area, something really weird happens right when you see a face. And so it's about 170 milliseconds right after the screen shows a picture of a face. And we'll talk about why this is important in a minute. But when you recognize a face, it's so important for you to pay attention to it that you have this specialized hardware. It's like a coprocessor in your brain that's processing faces. It's called the facial fusiform area. And what did I say about EEGs? When there's a lot of neurons doing the same thing in the same location at the same time, then you can pick it up. And so what we're seeing is the activation of the facial fusiform area within the EEG, and we could do it because of your invention. So that's kind of cool. So we added that experiment to the book. And now I'm going to invite Milica up to do an experiment that blew me away when I first saw it. So I'll let you explain it. I'll show you the slides we have. You can just maybe just explain what you're going to do. And I can, yeah, you know, I'll set you free for now. All right, for now.
Ok, ja mogu sada nastaviti na srpskom. Još jedan eksperiment koji je uključen u knjigu, na kom sam ja radila, je demonstracija nečega što možemo da zovemo Pinokio iluzija. Ono što svi znamo jeste da, kao što je Greg pričao, imamo neke razne neurone koji idu iz našeg centralnog nervnog sistema ka periferiji i konkretno kao ovoj ovde tetivi, na lakatnoj tetivi. Ono što je važno je, oni su ti koji daju informaciju našem mozgu kada se ruka kontrahuje, a kada je u stanju, da kažemo, odmora. Ono što smo mi testirali jeste na koji način možemo prevarimo naš mozak i prevarimo taj specifičan neuron ispod tetive. Ono što smo radili je bukvalno DIY nekim masažerom koji radi na određenoj frekvenciji, smo stimulisali baš tu tetivu, odnosno baš taj set neurona, dok je osoba imala zadatak da drži svoj nos i ruka je bila kontrahovana. Ono što se dešava, budući da stvaramo tu nekakvu specifičnu frekvenciju, taj neuron emituje informaciju, odnosno da kažemo komunicira sa našim mozgom i govori, ok, beleži se takva frekvencija, znači ruka mora da se pruža, odnosno da je ispružena, no međutim, budući da ta ruka drži naš nos, jedino što je logično u takvom sistemu jeste da kako ide ruka i nos ide sa njom, odnosno da kažem, ispitanici i ispitanice, odnosno osobe koje učestvuju u eksperimentu, prijavljuju da im nos raste dok se to dešava i da, naravno, važna stvar koju nisam rekla, sve vreme oči moraju da budu zatvorene, jer je onda to jedina informacija na koju se oslanjamo. Ovo što, da kažemo, input koji dajemo neuronu, tako da je to jedan od eksperimenta koji će se raditi u knjizi i pokušat ćemo tu samu iluziju da kažem, izmerimo koristeći ove spike rekordere, odnosno pratimo šta se dešava u samom mišiću, a šta na nekim drugim nivoima. Tako da, eto, to je.
I understood everything perfectly. All right. So this is the data she collected. So this is not moving the arm. This is when your arm moves. And this is when you feel your arm moving, but you can see the vibration on there. But you feel your arm moving and you don't see the EMG, but you do feel your arm moving. And so, and here's what the illusion feels like. And so what I want to just talk about briefly, and then I'm going to open up a few more experiments and we're going to end it. Is just what does this mean? It's really weird. It really feels like, it happened to me, it really feels like your nose is growing, and you can't convince somebody that it's not real because they actually think that their nose is stretching out, right? And I think when the illusion works, they were getting it was like 200 times, it was 200% bigger. It was like anyways, ridiculously weird. But what the current theories is that what your brain has developed is a sketch, it's a model, and we call it the body schema, this is what we're using to represent it. And what we do is we imagine ourselves, you can imagine yourself kind of, I can imagine jumping off the stage, I'm not going to do it, I can imagine myself doing it. And the only way I can imagine something in my brain is I have to have a model of that, right? And this is the model, it's our body, but it's just a sketch. It doesn't have all the information, it just has the feeling of what it means to be me. And it turns out that you can look in the neuroscience literature, this is what blew me away about it, because I read these papers when I was in grad school, and you look at it like, oh, that's interesting, I wonder why the brain's doing that, right? And here's the experiments that blew me away. This was a study that was done in monkeys. They were recording from the hand cortex of monkeys. And the grad student came in with an ice cream cone. And every time the monkey never seen an ice cream cone. So every time the grad student would eat the ice cream cone, the neurons in the hand of the monkey would fire, even though the monkey's hand was not moving. it was almost as if the monkey was imagining himself moving, right? And so you get these neurons that would fire when the grad student would do it, and then later on when the monkey would do it, his neurons, the exact same neurons would fire, but it wasn't, he wasn't moving, and so they discovered this and called it mirror neurons. And then they said, oh, that's kind of weird, does that happen in humans? And so here's a study done in 2006 where they put, I think, 16 people into an fMRI machine, and they just asked the question, when does the brain synchronize? And when you get these peaks of synchronization across all 16 people, and they found it in the hand area, and they said, all right, well, what was happening during the movie? And it's like people are lighting cigarettes, he's holding a gun, they're doing fine finger movements. And so the people who are watching the movie are almost like they're doing the action. And what we've discovered, we think, and the theory says, is that the person that you feel yourself as, right, this body schema is not just run on ourselves, that everybody else that you see, you're running your body schema on them. And so you imagine a room full of people, like right now you guys, you're running yourself on me. And how do we know that's true? If I was double jointed and I could bend my arm all the way backwards and like touch my head, if I could do that, you would look away, like you would get grossed out, right? Because it's like, I don't want to look at that, right? Why not? It's not you, it's me. But the reason why is because it is you, right? You're running your model on me. And so this gets into theory of mind, it gets into empathy. So the idea that you have a copy of yourself that you run on other people is the beginning of how we get to this point, all right? And I'm not going to get into the details now, but we have even a cooler experiment, which is too long to get into, but it turns out that our model is much richer than just the body. The reason why we run it on other people is not just because we want to have empathy. We want to predict what the other person's going to do. For evolution, if this guy's going to beat me up, I want to know if he's in a threatening position or not, right? So I run my body on him or her, and I see, like, oh, I better get away. So, but your body position alone is not enough, and what you need to do is you want to pay attention to what they're paying attention to, right? And so what we do is we run an attention schema, which is kind of following an arrow out of the eyes. And so you have the sketch of the body plus an arrow, and the experiments that we've done in this book, which I still can't believe works, is that we imagine, literally imagine, a force coming out of people's eyes, and it pushes against things. And so the experiment we do in this book, which you can do online when you go home tonight, and you scan the QR code, you will see this effect as well. So when someone's looking at a tube, so we have this tube where you have to put a little bit of weight, and we can measure that weight, you imagine a set of eyes pushing on things, right? And so why does that happen? So have you ever felt like you're being looked at before? You get the weird feeling like someone's looking at me? And often when you look back, someone is looking at you, right? It's not, that eerie feeling you get is not just an eerie feeling, it's your brain has created a model, even though your subconscious has heard something back there, and it's imagining somebody kind of looking at you from behind, right? And when it puts that force against you, even though it's not a real force, your brain interprets it as a real force. We can measure it, and it's about the weight of a raisin in your hand. So you feel like a little raisin on your back, and you turn around, and sure enough, your brain has constructed something that was correct. It's often correct, right? You often do this experiment next time you're walking down Belgrade. When you're crossing a busy street, stare at somebody for too long and see, even if they're on their phone, they will look at you. And the reason why is their subconscious can feel your eyes looking at them, and they'll switch over and look over at you. It's really kind of creepy. Anyway, this is what makes me excited, because I feel like we finally understand how our brain works and what's going to happen in the future. And I think we're going to be able to put this into AI and actually have conscious robots that will actually feel the pain from you if it understands what pain is, and we can program those things in. So that's kind of exciting. All right, should we stop here, or should I can do a couple more demos? Okay, all right, we'll do demos. All right, since you were in Milica, actually no, why don't you come down and do it? Okay. Oh, it's typical. All right, so we'll hook you back up again. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to hook yourself back up. So for tomorrow, there's 2 red wires, and you want to put the red wires across the area you're interested in recording from. For those who are electrical engineers, this is called differential recording, versus our spiker box, which is single-ended recording. So the first thing I'm going to do is, remember we saw your brain on the computer, and so what we can do in the maker spaces is we can start to build brain-machine interfaces. And the first time you make a brain-machine interface, you want to do what's called the hello world of brain-machine interfaces. And then so squeeze your hand right now. So you're controlling these LEDs. Make them all come on, like, there you go. So this is like, so remember, this is the recording from her brain, and now we have some code running on a little microcomputer that's able to do things, okay? And we're gonna go, hold this one, bring it. We're going to go one step further, and we have students that have built models of their hand. All right, I'll hook this up really quick. And so this is just a servo, and I'll plug this into there. My arm's slow. All right, so now you can hold this in your hand. Okay, go ahead and give your hand a squeeze. There we go. So what's cool about this? Whoops, it popped off. What's cool about this experiment is that this is where your muscles in your hand live. So your fingers are actually, so like we're recording from her hand, and doing good squeeze again. Yeah, there we go. And so students can see this is where the muscle is, this is where the tendons go, and the tendons pull the fingers down. So it's kind of like a little kind of makerspace way of understanding how the brain works. But you can also go one step further and make a little project, right? So here's a brain-machine interface that we've developed that does something useful now. So I'm going to have you hold this in your hand. Yeah, grab it. All right, perfect. And then, so this is, again, remember what's going on. So you can go ahead and try to grab things from that. So you squeeze this hand. There you go. And so imagine what's happening. So we have neurons in her brain that are firing. There you go. And we're able to record from them, right? And we're able to then use that to control things. And so when students start to do this, they start to like, oh, wait a minute. If somebody has a spinal cord injury and the spinal cord's broken and their muscles can't move, maybe I could stick some electrodes above the brake and have them control that, and have them control like wheelchairs or servos and do a bunch of stuff like that, cursors on the screen. All right, and so we're gonna do one last experiment here. You want to be a part of it? Okay. There's someone from the audience want to do it. You want to do it, Sasha? Okay. All right. All right. So come on down. You have to take your jacket off. For science. And so what we're going to do now is we saw her brain on the computer. We saw it controlling LEDs. We saw it controlling like a little toy hand. We saw it controlling a claw in the shape of a cockroach. But now what we're going to do is we're going to have you control a real human. So we're going to take the output of your brain. So Sasha, when you move your arm like this, like imagine, like, so you guys both move your arm at the same time, right? So if you just go like this with your hand, yeah, so if he's going like this and you're going like that, in both of their brains, their motor cortex is firing and it's going down to their spinal cords. And so what we're going to do now is I'm going to connect her brain to where your brain would normally control that arm, and then I'm going to make a copy of what she's doing and stick it into you, and you will lose your free will, all right, and you're going to pass it over to Milica. All right.
Good opportunity for writing.
Yeah, writing checks. Yeah, writing checks for you. All right, so you want to give me a high five. So what I'm going to try to do... Oh yeah, you can stand up here, yeah, please. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an electrode right here on his ulnar nerve. And this is the funny bone. Have you ever hit your funny bone? And the reason why it's your funny bone is that the nerve gets really close to the skin. That's why I'm going to attach that one. And then if you just let your hand relax like this, and I'm going to turn it on, and then you two are going to be one cybernetic organism when this comes on. All right. And so you can look away. All right. You guys, all right, and then when you want to, you want to get those lights to turn on. Yeah, so, all right, there you go. Just kind of every once in a while. Don't do it for too long. All right, just like that. Pump it. All right, you got it. And I'm going to start to turn it up. But yeah, not too long. No, just like relax, just like quick ones. All right. You start to feel something? All right. All right. So yeah, I'll leave. I won't turn it anymore. So there we go. So now you have free will. So right now, his arm is moving because your brain is sending a signal. We're making a copy of it. So go ahead and do it again. All right. So, all right. So what would it? Yeah. Okay, we're done. All right. So we'll turn. All right. And so then I'm gonna do one more experiment, and this shouldn't work. So we'll see. So relax your arm. Just like make your arm dead, like you're a zombie. And what would happen if I moved Militz's arm? Would it move the principal's arm? Why not? Yeah, so it has to come from her brain. So just relax your but it's a good question. Maybe passively moving muscles does something, right? It doesn't. All right, make sure it still works. Give it. Okay. All right. So, and then this last one, and I'll release you. Yeah. So, what would happen if she wants to move her arm, but I prevent her arm from moving? He would move or would not move? Yes. He would move. All right, so let's just try it out. You're going to try to move your hand. I guess. All right, with that, I'm going to release you. And you, thanks for being a good sport and for being the principal of this wonderful school my wife went to. All right. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to to our MC, and we'll maybe open up for questions at the very end. All right, so thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Možda ostavimo najzabavnije za kraj. A sada bismo ostavili prostora i za vas, dok je još Greg tu i dok smo tu mi, da ako neko ima pitanje u ovom trenutku, prosledit ćemo mikrofon. Imamo jedno pitanje pozadi. Pa sam opet. So the question is, how far have we reached in the practical terms of the application of these inventions in terms of rehabilitation?
Yeah. It's a really good question. So what we looked at today with our nice volunteers in the audience, that's called functional electrical neurostimulation, and that is actually a treatment. It's a treatment for spinal cord injuries, and if you watch the videos, they'll make you cry. It's amazing what they can do. So what they'll do is that if you have a high break in your spinal cord, they take the muscles from your neck and they splay them apart. They will go into surgically remove them and move them around. And the reason why they do that, they want to put cuff electrodes around each one of those muscles, and then they stick the electrodes exactly like we saw today, but from the human brain, back down to itself, and they'll put stimulant electrodes, and you can have people be able to drink again and be able to kind of eat again. So it's an amazing thing. So that's kind of getting to where it is. The motion is kind of gross motion, meaning that it's they're not very natural, because we have, I think, 300 muscles in our body, and so each one is controlled by many neurons, and so we have to have, so having 6 electrodes, it seems like a lot, but it's not compared to what the brain normally controls. And so, yeah, we're getting there, but I suspect what's going to happen is it's not through the experiments they're doing today. What they're doing today is teaching them how to do science. They're going to learn how to make the question. People think science is about answers, right? It's not. It's about questions. When you do science, you're making questions. You're making hypotheses of what you think is going to happen. And what we're going to train the students to do is how to ask the questions and how to answer the questions, right? And so it's really hard to ask questions in science. It's really easy to answer them. Well, easier than coming up with the good questions, right? And so we're trying to train students to be scientists by having them be scientists in the classroom, collect data, come back and ask if their question was correct. Was that hypothesis true or not? And so I suspect that in the future, by doing this and making connections between, you know, high schools and universities, and because we publish all the papers, we have 17 peer-reviewed publications from students' data that's coming through, that we can get the idea in the heads of students that, oh my God, I can do this. I can become a neuroscientist. I can ask questions, and you get bolder and bolder the more confident you get in science to ask the right questions. And so that's our goal.
Imaš neko pitanje?
Da.
Pozad.
Pa, s obzirom na to da mi u Srbiji nemamo neuronaučnike, kako biste definisali to, kako biste razgraničili šta je neuronaučnik, šta je neurolog, šta je, ono što je pričala upravo Milica, šta je psihijatar i tako dalje. Zanima kao, zapravo šta je razlika?
Ovo pitanje više za nas, a? Ajde, izvoli.
Pa ja bih samo htjela da kažem da mi imamo neuronaučnike i neuronaučnice. Evo dve se deklarišu kao takve pred vama. Šta je fora? Znači, neuronauke u suštini kao neki plural je skup nauka koji u suštini zajedno u kontekstu različitih metoda koje spaja, na primer, EG, MG, nekakve vidovi transkranijalnih, električnih, magnetnih i sličnih stimulacija, pokušavaju da odgovore na pitanje kako naš mozak radi. I kogod se bavi time, po defaultu jeste neuronaučnik. Ono što je kod nas problem ili trenutno stanje stvari, jeste što mi iz gomile različitih perspektiva, znači mi na psihologiji, na primjer, imamo kurseve koji su vezani za neuronauke, samo to nije sve što učimo. Pa te kasnije, na primjer, moj master je bio potpunosti u domenu neuronauka, ja sam se sama usmerila i sada biram da idem tim putem. Ista stvar se dešava i na biologiji, i u kontekstu ETF-a i nekih drugih grana. Samo je put malo drugačiji, zato što, kao sve više i više se sužava, dok u kontekstu programa, na primjer u Americi i slično gde to postoji, oni od početka dobiju tu neku multikulti perspektivu iz više različitih nauka. Tako da u tom smislu ne bih rekla da to kod nas ne postoji, samo je put možda malo kompleksniji.
Zapravo da kod nas ne postoji, znači onda jedan kao fakultet koji se samo...
Da, toga ne.
To ne, dakle, nemamo još uvek. Biće u nekom trenutku nešto se na medicinskom trenutno, kako se ne razumela, razvija u tom pravcu. Ali ideja upravo ovakvih programa je da vam pokažu da ono što je kod nas u Srbiji još uvek nedovoljno razvijena multidisciplinarnost, u ostatku sveta to nije problem. Dakle, nije poenta da mi razgraničavamo neurologiju od neuropsihologije, od psihijatrije, već upravo da pokažemo na koji način te discipline mogu da se uvežu zato što se bavimo istim problemima, a zapravo im samo pristupamo na različite načine i sa različitom metodologijom i kroz ovu letnju školu smo upravo pokazali kako i studenti biologije i ETF-a i medicine i psihologije mogu zajedno da rade na istom problemu i koliko dodatno mogu da pospeše rešavanje tog problema nego da se posmatra samo iz jedne discipline. Tako da ukoliko želite u Srbiji da se bavite neuronaukama, zaista je sve da li ćete studirati biologiju, psihologiju, medicinu, elektrotehniku, više je pitanje toga šta je, koji deo toga, koji aspekt toga je vam više interesantan, a opet mi svi međusobno sarađujemo. Dakle, to u praksi izgleda tako što neko sa filozofskog istupi prema nekom CTF-a, prema nekom s medicine i mi zajednički radimo neki projekat. Dok ne budemo imali jednog dana neki naš zajednički institut, ne možemo. Tako da, eto. Da, bilo je ovde i ovde, ajde prvo vama.
Jel lakše možda na engleskom, pošto je njemu upućeno? Hi Greg, thank you for the presentation. My question is, you said something along the lines of implementing all of this into AI.
Yeah.
So, the first thing that came up to my mind is the Elon Musk's Neuralink. So, do you think that is some kind of implementation?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's somewhat similar, right? But there's different. So, like, I think Elon Musk is afraid of runaway AI and that the human brain is not as like the only way we can communicate is through typing or by speaking, right? And we know from computers that the computers can go at megahertz and gigahertz, and we can talk at tens hertz. Right? We can always say you only type how fast do you type? How many words per minute? Like 20? I don't know, 40 maybe. So 40 hertz is much, much less than gigahertz. And so I think his concern is that the brain itself, the brain can fire, I mean, their neurons can fire up to 500 hertz and you have multiple of those, right? That he's trying to say, all right, well, how do we connect the brain directly to the computer such that we can keep up? That's what his fear is. What I'm saying is something slightly different, and that is, once we understand the schema, the model that you need to build, and we know a lot about the model, about attention. So the attention model is our consciousness. We know where it lives. It has a spatial location. It lives right behind our eyes. It has a controller aspect. It can control it can go, you know, from external world to going back to your autobiographical history of what you did yesterday, what you had for lunch. It's your attention thing sweeping around. And so once we understand what the components are, you can train AI to start to build these things, and they're already doing it. They have some AIs that they've made just have visual attention, and when they play the Atari games and you look at what the AI is trained on, even though you never told it what to do, it looks just like it plays a video game like a human. It starts to look around. So like we're starting to get to that point, and it creeps a lot of people out that we're going to have conscious robots. But I like that better. I like the idea of if there's a robot that could kill me, that it would have empathy in me. It would project itself into me such that it wouldn't want to hurt me, right? Yeah. And it's funny because like people are already talking about feeling bad about turning off robots. We're projecting ourselves into them, right? So it'd be cool if they did it back to us. That's all I'm saying. Yeah.
On that topic, do you think that perhaps maybe robots could be psychopaths as well?
Yeah, well, I mean, it depends on a couple things, right? So a psychopath. So what's interesting about these models is you can start to ask questions about what does it mean to have a psychopath, right? It means that you might not run your model on other people. You might be the only model on Earth. And I think that if you build a robot that only thinks about itself, that is a psychopath. So I think psychopathy is like 1% of the population, and it could be a disorder of the body and attention schema that you think you're the only one that has that, right? You can look at other things like multiple personality disorder. Maybe we have multiple models that can pop up. It happens in other diseases in the brain, right? So like. I suspect that if we can control the training of robots, the current way that AI is done, we don't have online learning. So so like you train a robot, you know, like for GPT-5, which is still in training, it's been being training for 9 months, right? And then when they release it, it's not going to learn again. You're going to use it, right? And so AI uses back propagation in a very, very intense CPU heavy or GPU heavy algorithms to train it, and then once it goes live, it doesn't update. It just uses the weights that it had from before. Such that if we train an AI to have a body schema, an attention schema, and have basically empathy, then it will have it. It's not going to lose it because it can't update itself. But one of the things that I think people are looking at is how do we change that? How do we make AI that can learn on the fly, right? It'd be like if you read a book, you'd have to sleep, and then the only way you could remember it if you fell asleep and you woke up again. And that's not what we can remember it during the day, and then when we go to sleep, we push it back. So it's like, so right now robots don't do that. Robots have to go to sleep and they have to do this deep learning, and then they wake up again, and then they know it. And so yeah. So if maybe in the future. This would be the quote that's in the paper. Maybe in the future, if robots can do online learning, they can learn to become psychopaths.
Well, I love the Blade Runner movies.
Yes, there you go.
Have more questions in the back?
Možda sam nisam obraćala dobro, ali kada ste pričali o onome kako naš mozak može da percipira da nas neko gleda, da mi ne vidimo, da nije vidio u tom momentu. Da li postoji teorija ili se zna zašto je to tako kao, da li nekada se preživljava, mislim, zašto se to pojavilo?
can answer to the part of that question, but the question is, with the attention schema, like for us feeling that someone is looking at us from the behind, what is the theory behind it? Well, one of that part of that theory is what Greg actually mentioned. It's survival. So we need to understand how when someone is looking at us in order for us to be either afraid or friendly with this person.
Yeah. And so how do we know that's real? It's a very strange thing, and so we know that because we do experiments where we can measure the force of the eyes, and then. Well, how do you know that's, maybe it's just an effect of a face being there. And then what we do is kind of cool, you put a blindfold on the faces and the effect goes away. So it's only when your brain, and it's weird because if you put glasses on people where you can track their eyes, they're not, like in the experiment we do, they're playing a game here and the faces are way over on the left and right side. And so they're not looking at the faces, and you can do studies and you can look to see where they're looking, and they're looking at the tube. They're ignoring the faces on the side, and we ask questions. We have at the end of the survey, we say, all right, did you look at the faces? No. What were the faces there? They're just there to distract. They have any effect? No, they have no effect. So people just ignore the faces, except for your brain does not. Your brain has been through evolution, and we can ask the question, how do we do that? Our subconscious is looking at everyone's eyes. And you can ask the question, well, if we look at each other's eyes, are our eyes different? And they are. If you look at your cat or dog, look at the white parts of their eyes. They're almost in the back of the head, right? And as throughout evolution, especially going down the mammals that go to, chimpanzees to humans, the white part of your eye gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And why is that? Is that your subconscious needs to track other people's eyes. And through evolution, we work together to be able to keep track of those. And so, yeah, it's very strange, but it has a force, and we have a theory of why there's a force there. It's very important for you to figure out if someone's looking at you, and we suspect that the actual force measurement has to do with the threat level. So if someone's very threatening staring at you, it's really important that your brain alerts you to go take a look, right? Because you don't want to get killed. The gross part of evolution, yeah.
Što ako nema nikoga, na primjer, oko nas? Mi osjećamo da nas neko gleda, ali nema nikoga.
That's the other answer.
Well, what if there is no one around us and we
Yeah.
don't feel it?
Yeah, no, so it doesn't matter. So the cool thing about this, all right, so I didn't answer your question earlier. Let me just answer that. You said, how does it work? All right, and so in the experiment that we saw with the arm feeling like it was moving and it didn't, right? What was happening? We have a model inside of our brain of our body, right? That's the body schema. And by making that neuron fire, even though your arm wasn't moving, your brain was constructing a model. So in its model, its arm was sticking out, right? And it's just information. So what we're realizing is that the feeling of life itself is in an informational model. And so you can imagine that a force, if you feel someone's pushing on you, or a wind is pushing on you, your muscles and your senses pick that up and it turns it into an informational model against your body schema. But there's no reason why your brain cannot construct a force pushing against it. So what happens is that those eyes come down and they will push against you. Even though it's not real, you feel it because this is your feeling. You feel the model. And so you feel those things against you. So to answer your question, there doesn't have to be a person there. You can have an imagination. So imagine, like, when you're looking this way, I can still imagine someone behind me, right? So if your subconscious makes a person behind you and that person is looking at you, even though it's not real, but your brain, your subconscious thinks it's real, then you will feel it even though it's not there. It's just information.